Welcome to Behind the Audition podcast with your host, Curt Hilton. Listen in on interviews with voiceovers, filmmakers, producers, animators, and much more. Curt, a voice actor himself, will give insider tips to the business, talk with guests about how they got into the business, and be sure to stay tuned to the end of the podcast when he challenges his guests with a pop-up audition. Now it's time for Behind the Audition podcast. Here's Curt Hilton.
And welcome back to another episode of Behind the Audition with me, your host, Curt Hilton. I have an exciting guest today. We got on the phone earlier today and we chatted. We talk all the time, and it's kind of cool. The people I meet in this industry, we become friends, even though we don't live next door. Like back in the day, when you have a friend, you have to go at least go have a beer with them or go have a spritzer, whatever you drink, and you're a friend. You know, nowadays you can get on a Zoom call, get on a phone call, get in a chat room, and you can actually become friends with somebody. And my next guest, we worked on several projects together. Not at the same time because we'd find out, oh my gosh, you're on there too, stuff like that. But you've heard this next person. They've been on brands like Samsung, Merrill Lynch, Lego, Mattel, and Microsoft, and much, much more. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the one, the only, Mike Previti. How are you doing today?
Hey, Mr. Hilton. Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like I said earlier, I called you. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I wanted to get you on the show. 12:45. Let's do it. So I'm super excited. You and I, I like some other VOs. We talk on the phone, and it's good to have those people to reach out to when you're not having those such good days, or tips and tricks and stuff. Because
Amen.
We do see on social media and we hear things like everybody's doing great, and the imposter syndrome kicks in, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for so long. Why am I having the what if that what if it's time to change careers and stuff? But that's why we have each other to reach out to, and we have such a good community.
Amen, man. Yeah, no, it's like you're doing great until you're not doing great,
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's great. I mean, this is kind of the way you meet people initially now. I mean, it's either on social media, and then if you become, friendly like you and I have, then you get on a Zoom call or, talk on the phone or whatever. So it's very rarely that you're seeing people in person.
Mm-hmm.
It's great that we can do that. And I agree, like the whole being able to kind of have people to go to and not only, be there for you when you're having tough times, but like, kind of keep you accountable too. Cause, we're
Mm-hmm.
working alone every day,
Mm-hmm.
every week, so it's great.
Absolutely. And one thing I like that you do on social media, on LinkedIn and the other platforms, you start off and you tag your brand, which is very smart. How you doing, Mike Previti, MikePrevitiVO.com. I have it memorized. I have it branded in my head, which is genius, right? But
Thanks, man.
you put yourself out there. You don't just say,
Yeah.
hey, I'm doing 5 projects today, or I'm cool in the booth. The typical things we see a lot on social media. We see a lot of people in the booth being the cool person, and I'm not trying to say this in a mean way, but we should,
Sure.
like, we're too busy being in the booth making content instead of being themselves and stuff like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of gone away. But you give like motivational tips and like experience. You're the good experience and your bad experience that people can learn from. And what gave you that idea?
It really wasn't something that I thought about, that I was gonna, like, I had a plan, like this is what I'm gonna do. I just kind of, when I started to do social media with voiceover, I mean, there was a couple of different reasons. One, obviously, being that I wanted to keep myself, you just want to put yourself out there and keep yourself out there. And social media it's social media nowadays. It's like the number one way that you market yourself anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew I had to be on the platforms. Excuse me. I'm not a huge fan of social media just in general. But when I started, my business, I was like, okay, well, this is something I have to do. And I just kind of looked at it like, I'm just going to go on there and I'm just going to be me, because it's really the only way that I know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to act like I'm something other than what I am, or, I don't want to make believe, that I've been in the business for 40 years and try to put that out there when I haven't, that type of thing. So, I'm just kind of, I think I've always been the type of person that just can, have a conversation like this, one-on-one. And when I do it on social media, I kind of feel like I'm doing the same thing. And I'm just kind of talking to everybody else that's doing it. And whether you're new or whether you've been doing it for 10 years, I just kind of throw it out there and my story. And the funny thing is the tag, because I hear it all the time. A lot of people talk about oh, every time I see you, I think Mike Previti, MikePrevitiVO.com. It's funny because I, I I wanted to try to just like, well, how are people going to remember me? And I was like, I'll just kind of tell them what my website is
Works.
at the beginning. Yeah, and it just seems to kind of it's stuck, and I'm happy it's stuck, So
And you know that there are production houses and producers, animators that and stuff who see that stuff on LinkedIn and kind of show your vulnerabilities and your realness and authenticity. That word came
yeah.
out weird. That's one of the words that
Yeah,
if I
I
read
can
the
never
script,
get that right, Curt.
it's like read. It's like when you go to the restaurant and you want an Arnold Palmer. Like my
Yeah,
son and I that word asking for that drink like you asked for it. I'm not going to sound like an idiot.
right. There's always a word in like when you're reading copy or whatever. There's always like a couple of words that you just can't get.
Absolutely. And so no, but you do show that, and I think that's great for the platform. And one thing I'm gonna give you a shout out. You're a great musician too. I mean, before
Oh, thanks,
voiceover,
man.
you were a musician. How was that being a musician? I sometimes like I've said in the past, have a ukulele and a guitar that collects dust. I used to
Yeah.
in the pandemic, I started getting out the ukulele and started playing and sit on the front porch and all that stuff. Be able to play an instrument, sing. Do you still like walk around the house and jam out every once in a while when you have a good days
Y-
or even
you
bad days,
know,
I guess, right?
Yeah, the funny thing is, so I recently brought out the guitar. I have an acoustic guitar and an electric guitar, and I brought out the acoustic because a friend of mine was doing a show, just a local show, and he asked me if I would play with him, and him and I used to be in a band together years ago, and so I hadn't done it in a while, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, let's do it. So for things like that, every once in a while, I'll kind of take it out. But I really don't anymore, or I haven't. But yeah, I mean, I was a musician way before I was in voiceover. But the funny thing is, prior to that, I mean, even going back to when I was a kid, I've kind of since I was little, I've always just been in the creative space. Like I've always like initially it was movies and television, and I'm like, oh man, this is what I want to do.
Hmm.
And I was like behind the scenes. I like my dad used to watch these old movies when I was a kid, and I used to just, I don't know, be fascinated. And I got an agent when I was like 12, and I did some on-camera commercials and things like that when I was really young. But then the music bug took over because there was always music playing in my house, and so I was always listening to music. And my mom, is a huge music fan, and the music bug took over like really strong, and I started playing drums when I was like 10, and then picked up guitar when I was 15. So from that point on, years and years, I was doing the singer-songwriter thing and playing shows and touring and all that stuff. But it's great. And the funny thing is some of the skills are very transferable to voiceover. So when I got into this career, when I really decided that voiceover was going to be a thing for me, um, it's amazing how many of the skills are transferable. I mean, obviously, when it comes down to the recording and things like that, that's a given. But even the marketing skills,
Hmm.
so it's pretty funny how that works. But
Yeah, I love going to see like concerts, and then when I one of my favorite Ben Harper was one of my favorite
oh
concerts.
yeah,
Jack Johnson is Gavin DeGraw, him up on
oh
the
yeah,
piano
he's
and just
Gavin's great.
just jams out, and
Yeah,
it's just so crazy to see like how they just get on stage and just perform. Like to me, I can like yeah, before back in the '90s, I was like the club DJ and wedding DJ, and I'd get in front of like hundreds of people. It was like no big deal. But I
yeah,
could never picture myself getting on stage and just belting out a song. Like
yeah,
it would be the most crackly and most embarrassing thing in the world.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean the transition to voiceover, that I mean was there when you went from being a musician to a voice actor, was it easier or was it kind of
Well,
a
it's just different. It's just so different. I had done it kind of 10 years prior to that. I was writing I had a songwriting partner, and we were doing a lot of writing together. And he had said to me at one point, just, hey, did you ever think about doing voiceover? And he's a full-time composer. So had worked with, different voice actors over the years and things like that. And I said, no, it's nothing I ever really thought of. And so put a demo together, did it for about a year, kind of let it fall off because it really wasn't something that I was concentrated on. I was still concentrated on our music at the time. But then yeah, when I decided to make the switch, it was very it was something that because I had done it, I really liked it. It was a creative thing for me to a creative outlet and really something that after doing just a lot of research on it, because I did a ton of research probably for like 2 months
Hmm.
before I even took a first step, is that, it's very similar. Again, it's creative and it's something that I really felt that I could make a business. I was like, I think I can grow this business and I can do it. And so yeah, it's not that it was harder or what. I think it actually made it a little easier because I had some of the production skills and some of the marketing skills. Because now as voice actors, Kurt, you market to like video production companies and ad agencies and etc. I was doing the same thing when I was in music, but I was marketing to record companies and publishers and managers. So it's the same, but it's different.
Absolutely. And going back to marketing, when you reach out to your current clients and prospects, what works best for you with your direct marketing? Do you find making every single email personable, or do you have like a system? I know there's voice actors and coaches out there who have a plan in place, like steps to marketing and all that. Do
Yeah.
you use the same method, or do you like to, kind of refreshing your tactics each week?
I keep it pretty similar because I don't I know that there's people that talk about personalizing and find, when you're on somebody's website, find out what their yeah, I don't know what their favorite sneakers are or something and then talk about it. But the bottom line is there's no I personally feel like if you do that, first of all, I believe that people know that you're just trying to be a car salesman at that point.
Hmm.
Because look, we're all marketed to on a daily basis, right? Us as voice actors, we market to other people. Everybody knows you're trying to market. So my thing is yes, you wanna make it personable in such a way that you're being kind and you're not wasting a lot of time. If
Hmm.
if prospective clients are opening up an email and it's a book, they're just gonna hit delete, you know, and there's, like, a lot of people and I've been teaching over the past few months, I've been teaching newer voice actors marketing,
Hmm.
and all it is my process. This is what I do. I share
Hmm.
my screen, I say, "This is what I do. These are the steps that I take." I incorporate LinkedIn within the whole process, etcetera, and one of the things that I say is, I hear a lot of people saying, and when you're getting your marketing email together, the subject line should be something interesting. So they open up the email. Again, I just don't believe in that. My email just says voiceover because if nothing else, they're either going to think I'm a voice actor or they're going to think that somebody needs voiceover. So they're going to probably open it up anyway. But my thing is I don't because I have a certain amount of emails that I like to send out every day. I send out about 700 emails a month and I don't really have time on my initial email to do that to find out what their favorite food is and incorporate that into an email and get really personal. So
Hmm.
I use a template. I cater it as needed. If I see
Hmm.
something that I feel like I can,
Hmm.
um, detail it a little more, then I will. But especially for the first email, I really don't do that. Then if they get back to you, then it's more of a conversation and you can
Short and sweet,
go
yeah,
from there.
and that's yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people, and I
Yeah.
actually, we get scared of AI. I actually had fun with an AI platform one time. I just wanted to see when I first started playing around with it, and I created something that I wanted to test the emotions of AI emails. And what I
Yep.
would do is actually would create something to sound like in this sort of tone, and then I'd go back and I would edit it to what
Yeah.
it sounded like for me.
Right.
So, some of us
Right.
hate AI because we're scared. I'm not even worried about AI anymore. I really
Yeah.
don't. I
Yeah.
don't.
Me
I
neither.
was at first. I was like, oh my gosh, but I'm like, if somebody hires something with AI, they can't tell AI, hey, I need you to change that tone a little bit.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So, but with emails now, I'm like, wow, this is kind of a cool tool. You kind of
Yep.
craft things that kind of, what you're looking for. Because sometimes you get writer's block. We're not writers, right? We're
Right. Right.
we're actors.
Right. Right.
So, with the projects that you look for every week, is there a certain type of voiceover that you like? I mean, you've been doing this for a while now. What's your favorite? I know a lot of people like everyone, but that's not realistic.
No.
My favorite's commercial. I love
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah, I do too, Kurt. I mean, I think that if somebody had a gun to my head and said, you got to pick one, I would say commercial. I do. I love commercial. Um, I like other genres too. I mean, I work in, different genres. I mean, it's kind of like you go where the work is, right? So
Hmm.
you get the work and you do it. So I've done just like a lot of us, explainers and e-learning and
Hmm.
yep, the fun stuff comes up here and there with animation and video games, but
Hmm.
a lot of what you're gonna do are commercials and I love commercials. And I'm always a big fan. I kind of gravitate towards some of the funny stuff too in commercial, the kind of tongue-in-cheek things.
Hmm.
I love auditioning for that type of thing. But yeah, I think if I had to pick one, I'd say commercial for sure.
Yeah, my least favorite by far is the e-learning, which I don't care if AI takes over e-learning
Right,
because
right,
when you're
right.
recording those, sometimes you have 3,000 words. You're like, oh my gosh, and keeping it
Yeah,
that same tone for
sure.
that long. Going back to, now we have Hulu ads, we have Prime Video ads, and people are upset we got to pay these prices, but that's opportunities for us voice actors. Now they're hiring voice actors, to do these commercials now.
Hmm.
What do you I cannot find rates for those. I know they have some on the rate guide and everything like that.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll be updating those guides pretty soon?
I would imagine, I think GVAA anyway, if that's the guy that you're talking about it, they update, I think they update once a year. I don't even
Mhm.
know if they updated it from last year to this year. I'd have to look, I mean, and that's basically like for my rates anyway. And I know a lot of people kind of use the GVAA rates as a
Mhm.
standard, kind of like the standard, that's kind of what you go by. I like those rates too because what happens is if you look at those rates, there are kind of if you look at the non-broadcast and broadcast, like there's ranges of
Mhm.
rates. There's not like this is the rate,
Mhm.
because obviously there's a lot of variables that go into that, especially when you're talking to a client. But I use the GVAA rate guide just as my guide. I've based my rate card. A lot of people don't ask for a rate card. I have it. I've been asked for it a couple times.
Right.
But it's just always based on ranges. And as I tell all of my other all of my clients, or people that are prospective clients that will get in touch with me asking for rates, I'll always give them my rate card and then say, always, willing to have a discussion. They're based on ranges because every client's budget is different from
Mhm.
project to project, So
Right.
but I think it's a good rate guide. But yeah, I don't know when they update it, if they have already, maybe at the beginning of the year, or if it's sometime, within the year. I'm not sure though, 100%.
Yeah, that's one area that I've noticed, which is kind of hard to base on. I just had a client reach out. I was doing some marketing, and they got back. Hey, love the demo. What do you charge for this, and this? And I knew the two of the three of them. I'm like, oh my gosh! And I went and looked, but it caught me for the first time, and so I reached out to some other people, like, hey, what are you charging for this? Because
Yeah,
there's new things coming out all the time and new opportunities, and it gets
that's right.
exciting. So as much as we don't like paying for, you know, Prime Video, Netflix, Hulu, the
Yep.
the commercial parts, it's an opportunity. So uh
All opportunity. Yep.
absolutely. And the next thing I want to talk about is you and I get to work together on a couple few projects. The Frankenellis and
Yeah.
the Joe Carrero, he is like
Yep.
his work is amazing. It was kind of funny. I saw the project come out and I saw your work. You did so fantastic on my favorite was oh my gosh, the Dracula. And so we got to work on that together, and I got to
So much
play,
fun.
Doc, and you got to play. You
It's
had
good.
me in like laughing because I was thinking, doing animation is so much fun, but you do have to, like, put yourself into that character and like
Yeah.
and look exactly at the notes and everything, because yours came out so, I mean, I was laughing so hard,
Oh,
like,
thanks,
when he
man.
was doing the blah blah,
Yeah,
and just
blah.
yeah,
Yeah,
laughing.
that was funny because that was so the Francanellos being a crime family, but they're all monsters, and Joe does such a great job of creating these characters. I mean,
Hmm.
with the backstories and the whole thing, and it's pretty amazing. And so I remember talking to him about this character, and he said, he's the great, 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 grandson of Dracula or something like that. And he wants to take over the crime family and he can't. So we were kind of talking about, and I was like thinking, okay, Dracula. And I'm thinking, of course, turning into a bat like the old school, like Dracula, in the old movies or something.
Hmm.
And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if he had this kind of like a tick? Like he's not totally Dracula mode. He kind of talks like this, and he has a more that type of voice. But every once in a while, when he gets excited, and he does, and
Yeah,
he turns into a bat, and
yeah.
so that's his kind of thing. So it's really cool to be able to like flesh out those characters with Joe and the kind of the
Yeah.
back and forth, and that's a lot of fun. And you do great at those
Well,
characters too, man. They're really good.
so you know what, your like your character, he lets you go with it, and so
Yeah.
it caught me off guard, and that's fantastic. And when he asked me to do Doc, I said, "Well, what are you looking for?" And I did the voice. He goes, "No, like the older guy from Christmas Vacation." I'm like, "Oh, give us no this guy,
That's right.
Christmas, and
Oh,
I was like,
perfect.
because I love that character
Y
on National Lampoon's Christmas
Oh
Vacation.
my god, yeah, how
You
can
know what
you
I mean?
not?
That
Yeah.
just, and there's a couple Christmas movies I watch every year. I'm like, okay, this is kind of done his deed for me. I'm kind of, but that one I still every year I laugh. And so now you're doing video, we're doing the same video games now, and it's doing video games. Do you find
Yeah.
yourself like when you're done with that session, you're just
Mhm.
like I'm done for the day? Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what type of thing you're doing. So, like, in a couple of video games, like, I was the narrator for a video game called Space Tale, and, obviously a different story just because you're the narrator, so it's not really you're not doing a lot of efforts or anything like
Hmm.
that. It's not character based. I mean, it's character based, but not crazy. But then in a game like, Ready or Not, which is a first person shooter game, when I did that session, it was, I mean, it was
Working with
15
Lonnie too.
minutes to it. Yeah, that's right. Lonnie's awesome.
Oh, I love her.
And, that's a whole thing. So, what you do and a good director will make sure that all those efforts are, done last. I think that's basically how they all do it nowadays anyway, because it's vocally straining. Um, and yeah, it was a great session because, it was a lot of one-liners, two-liners, and then yeah, you do all the efforts at the end. And I think the session was only maybe an hour and a half. But yeah, at the end, you're like, um, not only are you just vocally drained, like your vocal cords feel
Hmm.
like they're just torn up,
Hmm.
but you're mentally because you're exerting all this energy, you're freaking tired. You're
Hmm.
beat.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I've had those for sure, but those
Absolutely.
are exciting.
Yeah, I found myself beating myself up with the role I did, and I was actually punching myself to act like I was getting punched. I was
That's
like,
see,
hold
you
on. I
gotta
was
get
like,
into it.
hold on a minute. And it's kind of hard to watch your levels and everything when you're actually
Yeah,
trying to, you know what I mean? So you have to
yeah,
make sure you're not overdoing it. But yeah, I always find myself after a video game, you're like, if you do like a screaming voice or if you do like whatever kind of role, you just at the end of the tape, you're like, okay, I'm gonna take the rest of the day off after this one.
yeah, for sure, absolutely, absolutely,
and,
yeah.
and and so now it's time to have fun with the audition challenge. And
Okay,
I got
yep,
something for you here. I'm gonna pop it up um in your Google chat here, or
in the
actually
chat.
you're in the chat here.
Okay,
This is something fun that I wrote for you. It's something like, you'd be back in the 80s. So picture yourself back in the 80s,
okay,
and It's a new toy coming out, and it's edible.
Oh my
And
God, I love it already.
I know I've seen
So it's
your
Eddie
commercial.
Toy.
Yeah, yeah. So you've done these kind of commercials. I heard you do some Super Mario commercials, something like that in that manner, but bring it back to 1980s.
Oh yeah. This is just my wheelhouse, Curt. How do you know me so well? I'm just gonna put it because I'm blind. I'm just putting it into another document so I can
No
blow it up
worries.
a little bit
No
here.
worries.
Let me
It's
do
the
that.
fun part of this.
All right. This is good stuff. In the 80s. Oh yeah. Okay. Introducing Eddie Toy, the ultimate blast from the past. It's not just a toy. Okay. Are we ready?
We're ready whenever you're
All
ready.
right. Here we go. Introducing Edie Toy. Oh, it's Eddie Toy. Sorry.
That's right.
Introducing Eddie Toy, the ultimate blast from the past. It's not just a toy, it's a tasty adventure. Unleash your 80s nostalgia with the fun you can play and munch on. Eddie Toy, where playtime meets snack time. Rad, right?
I mean, just
And there you have it.
there you have it. And see, and right there, people are thinking Eddie toy. What does this toy look like? So, well,
Yeah.
something back in the 80s, because guess what? The toys that I played with, I'm in my late 40s, so the toys I played with were either the Star Wars or like
Yeah, yeah.
the stretchable, the little
Oh, you stretch Armstrong?
or the whatever
My
the other
God.
characters, you know what I mean? So
Back in the day. Wow, that's funny. That's great.
this time went so quick,
Oh,
and
yeah, it
we
did.
got to do this more often. I'd love to have you on every once in a while just to catch up and
Absolutely,
stuff.
man.
Where can people find you and listen to you?
So you can go to my website, which is www.mikeprevitivo.com. And then on social media, you can find me on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and even Facebook. Yeah.
Absolutely. And before I leave, I always ask the question, to I don't say aspiring voice actors, that drives me nuts, but to voice actors wanting to get some tips into getting into this business, because I get the phone call every once in a while. What do you do first getting into this industry, and what do you recommend to those?
So it's funny because I get the question a lot, and I think if I had to kind of nail down one thing, I would say do your research, and YouTube is your friend. Meaning, when I was researching before I became a voice actor, I did a lot of watching videos on YouTube. You find different voice actors and coaches, and there's a ton of videos. Everything's free. Do your research, get a good sense of, you know, where you need to be, and then just really work and don't rush because
Mhm.
this is the long game. There's no reason to rush. And just take your time with it and make sure every step is well thought out, as well thought out as it can be, anyway.
Absolutely. I had somebody reach out not too long ago, and they said, what do I need to do? And I told them what you said. And, I went over the basics, what most of the coaches that I speak with charge an hour. And I kind of gave them that idea. But I said, don't focus just on the cost of the coach.
Right.
And they said, well, how much is equipment? I said, well, it depends on, what kind of equipment you want. I said, the most important thing I think is the space you record.
That's right.
I've talked to many producers that are like, you can have a $10,000 mic, but you're recording in a basement.
Not
Doesn't
going to
do any
matter.
justice,
Yeah, it's not going to
and
matter. Yep.
and we went over just little things. And for those who want to get in this, after a 2 to 3 minute conversation on that part, they're like, oh, never mind. They thought it was just you go get a Yeti mic and
Yeah.
become a professional voice actor.
I know. Well, I think that's the misconception that you see that a lot on social media. I mean, you've seen those ads. Did you know that you could lay in bed with your pajamas on and make, $7,000 a minute? Like, it's just the dumbest thing you've ever seen. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people, we're kind of in a remote world now, right? People want to work from home. And and there's a lot of people that kind of want the easy fix, and those people obviously don't last.
Mhm.
I think you see it all the time. You see people, there's a lot of people that come into this industry and 6 months after they just fall off.
Mhm.
And and that's fine, but for those that want to really do it because they have a passion for it, they love it and they want to work at it, it is 150% achievable if you want it.
Before I let you go, I just thought about this. Do you get a lot of singing auditions for your voice acting? I'm not kidding you. A couple agencies out in LA have sent me a couple auditions, and they include singing. And
Yeah.
I mentioned like, sorry, man, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of those recently? I mean, is that
I
become
don't I don't get a lot, but I get so my agents know that I'm a singer, so here and there they'll definitely send over if it's like an animation pilot or something,
Mhm.
and they need singing, the characters singing, so I'll get some of those for sure. It's not. I'd like to get, you know, I guess I'd like to get more of them for sure. But it's really I don't get them a ton. I don't get them every day. I don't get them
Mhm.
every other day. But I
Yeah.
but I do get them. I do
Yeah.
get them.
I can't say the name because I'm not supposed to, but there's a certain agency out there that's literally it's been 2 weeks in a row. I'm like, I can't sing, man. Quit sending me
Really?
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's surprised. Yeah, they should probably know that you can't sing, so they don't send it to you.
yeah,
You would think, but
maybe they think I can. I don't know.
maybe they do, and maybe you can, Kurt, and you just
Absolutely.
don't know it. Maybe they know it and you don't.
Maybe karaoke Rick Astley. We'll bust out
That's
some of that.
Oh, that's what I'd like to hear. Go ahead. Throw
Nope.
that out there.
Yeah, maybe for another day. But
Okay.
I am so thankful to have you as a friend,
Oh, dude,
connection,
thank you, man.
and
Same, same.
keep up the motivation on social media, and and just keep in touch with everything. And I appreciate what you do for the VO community. And
Thank you, man.
Mike Previti, thank you so much for being on Behind the Audition podcast.
Thanks, Kurt. Much appreciated.
Thanks for listening in on Behind the Audition podcast, made possible by Hilton Productions. If you need a male or female voiceover, contact us at hiltonproductions.com. Hilton Productions, let our voices do the selling.